I'm OG and this is Gigi.
And this is Life Radically Redefined.
On this journey called life, you will definitely encounter the unexpected.
Sometimes you'll laugh, sometimes you'll cry, but in the end, if you have someone that will take your hand and walk through it with you, it makes everything better.
You get to make all kinds of discoveries along the way. Some about yourself, some about others. We made some and we just want to share it with you.
So we invite you to just listen, ask questions, make your own discoveries.
Pour your coffee, tea, or whatever you prefer. Settle in and let's talk about dating, courting, marriage, and life.
OG and Gigi, Life Radically Redefined. Welcome back, guys, to part 2 of our married couples panel. I'm so glad to have you here, and I'm so glad to have these couples here. You guys reintroduce yourselves to our audience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Gunn.
And I'm Ryan Gunn, and we've been married 11 years.
This is Elton Lewis and
Clarice Redding Lewis, and we've been married 9 months.
What do you love most about your spouse, Chelsea?
I would say his the love for children, and God is the reason I fell in love with Ryan.
Don't answer Ryan. What about you, Clarice?
I don't want to jack your answer, but honestly, I love Elton's heart for just people, and his heart for God. He's such a servant. I love it.
That's amazing.
I know. And Ryan?
And these questions are not all rehearsed, but this is the same thing. When you're a Christian couple, loving the Lord is very, very important. That's why it's one of the top priorities when you get married. So that, and then Chelsea's just such a optimistic, friendly, outgoing person. Like, everyone loves her. She could be the mayor very quickly. And, so just being married to someone that is, always like looking and thinking positive, it's really an inspiring thing, and she's a great mom to our kids.
Amazing.
Watson?
I would say, if I could boil it down, it would be her generosity, which is something that I keep learning each day with her. People in her circle, people in her community, in her network know like she really goes 100% in so many ways. She puts things together. She puts together experiences. She gets people together to the right places at the right time.
Wow.
She's just a very generous person.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Which reminds me, I'll say one of the things I love about my Gigi is that she is definitely on point when it comes to being, what's the word? What I'm looking for is intentional about making sure that, I come first in her life. It's like she tells me and reminds me and does things that, actions speak.
Okay, so what I love most about JC is definitely, like you lady said, his heart for God and then his heart for other people. Like, he and Chelsea are a lot alike, right? Like, they are, and Ryan and I have talked about this, and Clarice is this way too. Like, the three of you are like the entire, like, city council, the mayor has arrived, the entire, like, court has arrived. And then there's, like, me, Ryan, and Elton, and we're like, hey, we're here. We're along for the ride. But I think, like, it's amazing how God will put people together and give you such amazing strengths individually, but then when you join, it's like, it reminds me of that cartoon where they would join rings and it would light up. And, do you remember that? It's a very old cartoon. I'm showing my age. But, like, that, I love that he has this, like, effervescent personality that is just, and he hugs everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he walks into the room and you want a JC hug, and I love that about him, and I love that I get to, like, get that every day. You know what I mean? Like,
Aww, makes
so
me want to hug now.
yeah. So you guys, in the comments, tell us what you love about your spouse, because, like, and it could be anything. Just share.
Yes.
All right. So,
Do you guys know each other's love language?
Yes.
Yes.
excellent. And do you communicate with each other in
We
Each
miss
other.
each other sometimes. We miss each other sometimes.
But and how about you guys? Did you do the love languages and no?
He says he doesn't have one.
Well, no, I didn't say that. Chelsea has many, so you've got to touch a lot of bases with Chelsea.
Right, right.
Oh my gosh. Well, us,
Good.
I don't remember mine because could have sworn it was something else.
It
when
was.
we first got married, when we first got together, and then we
Switch
went
it up.
to
we
it
did it again
changed.
recently.
Yeah, because when we read the 5 Love Languages from Gary Chapman, and we went to his
A conference. We did a
Yeah,
conference.
conference.
In Fort Lauderdale.
and my main one was wasn't acts of service.
Physical
Well,
touch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
so
physical
physical
touch, and then
touch.
definitely, and then the second was
Recently,
huh? No, I'm saying you had like your secondary
Oh,
love
yeah.
language, but then recently it changed to like words of affirmation, and which was just kind of like, oh wow.
but that brings me back to growing together intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
and which you guys have already talked about it. That's what we do.
Yeah, but I think though that it's because it's so easy to grow apart, and it's easy to be like, oh my gosh, you've changed. Yeah, we all change, right? I'm not who I was 5 years ago, and none of us are, right? So, and man, now you have 2 brand new people in a relationship, right? So you have to like keep having those conversations. That's what we found, right?
Yes.
Just keep having those conversations about like, am I loving you in the way that you want to be loved,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
So, yes.
Next question.
Oh, it's my turn? All right, so,
The audience, they should know what their love language. So it's actually free
online.
online. Just put 5 love languages and then take that test, and then you'll know who you are,
Yeah.
so that you can tell your spouse how you want to be loved.
And then have them take it too. Like, take it together and then try communicating with each other based on love language. And I think a lot of times, like, before that, I would buy him stuff, or I would kind of do things that I think I would like. Well, I would like this, so he would think that's great. And then, those things would fall flat. And then after doing the love languages, I would do things to cater more to what he liked. And yeah, I mean, literally, there's times when he'll like jump up and down and just be like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, oh, you're 3. But that for me is like, I love that, So, all right. Let me see. The money discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. So when we talk to people about money and relationships, it's a
Yes,
it's a hard discussion, right? Especially, Clarice is like, yeah, especially when like you're adults, you have your own way of spending and budgeting, and yeah, for me it was more spending than budgeting, but spending, budgeting, like what takes priority.
Right.
Now, Clarice and Elton, did you guys have the money discussion before getting married, or was it during the marriage?
Both, and we're still having it.
Right, of course, right. And Ryan and Chelsea?
We actually, the first time, you might not even remember this, maybe you do. Before we got married, he's like, "It's your first test of submission. I want to take over the finances," and I was like,
Wait, I don't think I said it like that. Way to throw me under the bus with that, remembering like that. But we had a discussion about that, and
Yeah.
she wanted to do it, and I said, well, let me just do this because I thought I was going to be a little more stingy with the money, a little more conservative with the money. As she said,
Yeah.
stingy, I'd say conservative. But to this day, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But and honestly, the money is just like one area of marriage where it's a work in progress. I had a friend who once told me, he's like, listen, when I got married, about half my selfishness was gone. And he's like, when the kids came, the rest of it went. And that's not completely true because obviously we're all working on selfishness, but there's compromise in marriage in all different areas, and money is one of them. Where one person wants to spend more than say another person, or wants to go out to dinner more than another person. I mean, whatever. There's just so many things in marriage where money's involved, where you have to try to find that middle ground, and that's again not necessarily a bad thing. Where you're learning, you got to compromise.
Right.
Right.
I shared with him earlier, but I feel like, we've got plenty of struggles, but that area we've been able to work through, and talk through our whole marriage in a pretty objective way.
Right.
Where he just says, "Hey, that's how I feel," and I'm like, "Okay, it might not be how I feel, but we've got to come together,"
And I think that's one of the things, like, especially as women, right, in this culture, there is that constant, sound of, you need to be independent. You need to have a say in this. How come you don't get it? You know what I mean? But in Christian marriage, there is a call to submission. So for me, I remember friends asking me, how are you going to submit to somebody? And I was just like, I didn't think of it as something that was confining. For me, it was like, this is going to be awesome because he has to answer to God for all of it. Woo! I get, it was like a weight off of my shoulders in a way, in some areas, and of course it's not completely like you just lay down. I think that's one of the misconceptions too, that, in submission you lay down and it's just it. And he's the head of the household, so he's the leader. He's going to tell you what to do. And that's just not it. So share with us, Clarice and Elton, what does leadership and submission look like in marriage?
Okay. All right. So I have like the more patient, reserved, I'm comfortable and content personality. So I've had to learn how to kind of represent leadership in that way. I do have a jerk side of me, so I try to kind of work with that, because it's not good to go from 0 to 100, especially if everybody expects you to be 0, like 24/7. Because they're like, "What is wrong? What happened? What did I do? Did I do something?" So it was learning to be patient and consistent, and also getting away from "I told you so." That's what leadership had to look like for me. And,
well, I will say it's been refreshing, because I think for me, I'm not bossy. I have leadership skills. I am an independent only child, and I was single for 29 years, so I kind of did my own thing. So Elton coming in, he is very quiet and very reserved, and so I had to learn, in order to submit to him, that meant that I had to consciously consult him and not just make decisions like, I'm gonna go to Miami for happy hour, see you when I get back. I can't do, that is not my life anymore. Right. And there are times where Elton wouldn't say anything, but I could tell in his demeanor, okay, that was not me respecting him. He was not okay with that, and he may not say anything now, but in 2 weeks, we're eating breakfast one day. He's like, you know what? Another thing, I didn't like that. I'll be like, what? So I had to learn, okay, it's really now for me to submit to him, I have to include him. And not just include, but we're making decisions together. What are we eating for dinner? What are we doing? How do you feel about X, Y, Z decision? And so I think it's both empowering my husband to be more assertive and me actually not being so assertive. That's kind of the balance we've had to learn.
Absolutely. You know what? We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll have Chelsea and Ryan answer the same question. And I guess we can even talk a little bit about the submission and leadership. But you guys, what does submission and leadership mean for you? Even if you're single and you hear the words submission and leadership or headship in marriage, just in the comments, share what feelings you have about those, and we will be back in 2 minutes.
Words hold tremendous power and meaning. We use words to describe ourselves and one another.
Embrace who you are, because you, my friend, are enough.
Stand tall, because you have integrity.
I mean, if you're going to wear words across your chest, choose words that are uplifting. You are an achiever.
You are focused.
Choose words that are a positive reflection of who you are and what you stand for. You radiate excellence.
Always choose words that elevate you and those around you. You are amazing.
When you look in the mirror, know that you are a winner. Visit ogandgg.com and choose the I Declare apparel t-shirt that best reflects you.
Hey you. Yes, you. What's your love bank looking like?
I mean, is there a healthy balance? Or are you basically running on empty?
So I tell you what, follow us for some tips on how to refill that love bank.
And stay tuned for dates for the upcoming Love Bank Challenge.
I dare you.
Wow, OG, 2020 was quite the year.
Yes, Gigi. It was filled with both good and bad.
Hey guys, read the stories of 21 people who, just like you, navigated and pushed through 2020.
We were honored to be contributors to the project.
Visit www.ogandgg.lookatmenowbook.com to purchase your copy.
Be blessed and be a blessing.
Welcome back from commercial break. Now, we were asking Elton and Clarice about headship and leadership in their marriage.
And submission.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the things that Gigi liked to say is that two-head is a freak.
And anything with two heads is a freak.
So that I was lucky in that department
that I would remind you.
So definitely want to ask Ryan and his lovely wife, well, how does that look like in their marriage?
Do you want to start?
Sure. So submission's an interesting concept in the Bible. Like you said, I think our culture, free will and leadership and women empowerment and being an only child, I relate. I get it. But I think that God calls us to come together. And so a lot of submission to me is, he'll share his opinion, I share mine, and then I have to decide to allow him to make the decision in some cases. And in some cases, he lets me make the decision. So,
why are you giggling?
I would say bursting. I would say in those times I don't let her, but she wins in those particular times. So, but she's gotten a lot better throughout the years because Chelsea and I, when we did our premarital, we went through the test that you take, and the people that gave us a test said, "Did one of you fill out the same form? Because you're both the same." So we have very similar personalities. So it's not an easy position for her, but she's really worked hard at it. But sometimes it's her way, and sometimes it's mine.
Goodness, I know sometimes when Gigi doesn't agree with me, she'll go, "Did you pray about it?" I'll come right back to you. Let's not make a decision yet.
Right. And to be honest, that's usually my way of saying, I don't want to do it. So I probably need to, in those moments, say, okay, like, am I being, am I really asking you to seek God, or am I just kind of sending you away because it's something that I don't want to do?
No, but I think that reminds me that I have to follow God's guide.
Yeah.
To make sure that we make the right
decision. I think it's so funny that as we're talking this through, I think we both learn in those moments. Yeah. Like you guys all said, like it's constant. There is no all right, I got this. We know all of it, and there is no. People will say they're marriage experts. Mm-hmm. Not really. If you hit with the right situation, right, the right circumstance, you realize very quickly that you don't know. You don't know what you're going to do. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Which brings me back to one of our questions, which was, do you believe that love conquers all?
Right. Is love enough? And-
No and no.
Okay. I mean, no, I agree completely.
Yeah.
But, and how about you guys? Is love enough?
No.
So what else is there, Brian and Chelsea? What else is there? Because there's a lot of people like, oh, love will overcome. Love always wins.
Yeah.
What if that's not true? What is it? What's the secret sauce?
Yeah. Jesus and your commitment to your faith.
Yeah.
For me, godliness with contentment is great gain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think often, like in that, finding that contentment in Him
Mm-hmm.
will fulfill, and that's what I think.
And then, there's respect, and then there's, just being devoted. There's, how you act when you're not upset, or when you are upset. A lot of couples get upset. One couple will go off and do something that wasn't very good, and it could really change the way the marriage goes. There's so many aspects to it. So, love's very important. Dedication's very important. Forgiveness. How important is forgiveness?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't forgive, then you're not going to stay married long.
Right. How about you guys?
I would say, and I'm not just putting this as a Christian plug, but I've learned a lot about marriage through the gospel, and I learned a lot about the gospel through marriage.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's a very important component.
Mm-hmm.
Keep plugging it. Keep plugging it.
It's a
We all had a life before Christianity. We know,
Yeah.
I know that if I were to marry someone who wasn't a Christian, this wouldn't be the reality. If we, even the two of us, if we didn't know God, if we weren't Christians,
Even that, because my ex proclaimed Christianity. I think, do you do the godly thing?
Right.
I mean, people that gets arrested every day are Christians.
Yeah.
Doing wrong, knowingly doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they doing the godly thing?
Right.
I would definitely say that's the main thing. So what I really loved observing and learning about Elton in our relationship is, will you do the right things when nobody is looking?
Yes.
Like when it's just us and there's no one else there, are you going to choose God first? We have this running joke. He's like, if we ever robbed the bank, you would turn yourself in. And I'm like, that's probably, I would. But that's just, but knowing Elton, like I can always, and he's a sinner. He's not perfect, but I can confidently say that I trust that the Holy Spirit is in this man, because I've seen him make choices that a lot of other people may not make.
Right.
So I think that's what holds us together. What's what holds marriage together?
Yeah.
It's a choice by choice.
Day by day,
day
right?
by day,
Every
choice by
day
choice.
you choose to sometimes die to self, right? So that the marriage wins,
Yeah.
so that God is glorified through it.
Amen. I want to get back to what you just said. I do want to say, I want to piggyback on what you said, because I've said it before that my parents were looked at the great marriage because I had a mom and I had a dad, and most of my friends did not. But it's what they did behind the door that for a long time I didn't want marriage, because I thought that was marriage. That was my example of marriage, and I did not want that. And then, of course, my first marriage didn't work out, so I was like, "Yeah, I was right."
Yeah.
Right? It was like confirmation. But marriage is beautiful,
Yeah.
but I think just in different things that we've said, like if you're selfish, it's not going to work. If you or if you're, I think we're all selfish, but if you're not able to die to self, right, it's not going to work. And if you're not able to forgive, like if you're holding grudges and you're keeping track of all the wrongs, it's
That's
not
not love.
right.
Well,
I mean,
it's not.
you might love, you might
Yeah,
love the
you might
person,
love
but that no one wants to feel like, oh my gosh, here we go again. You're going to bring up something I did 4 years ago, right? Those things, when we forgive, we need to just leave those things alone.
Yeah. And I think what JC said really rung a bell there, because there's such a ripple effect on what can happen with marriages that don't work out in a negative way. And you
Right.
just described how it was ripple effect in your life.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, his life was normal until he was around 10. the age of 10, his mom had an affair with a pastor. And so not only did that keep him away from church for the next 20 plus years because he wanted nothing to do with God,
Right.
but it also started a spiral where when his parents split up, within 10 years, he was one of 3 brothers. One of his brothers was dead, and he and his other brother were in jail. So the ripple effect, it started with just a divorce, ended where you had that kind of tragedy. Now, fortunately, he was redeemed, but you can just see, there's a reason Satan attacks marriages.
Yeah.
Because if he can get, especially when there's kids involved, there's so many, ripple effects that can happen. And I'll tell you one other story. There's a woman I know who's amazing right now, been redeemed, but early in her life, her parents got divorced around 12, an affair again. And what happened is that she ended up going through drug abuse, which got worse and worse, and then she was in prostitution at one point. And she was so lost and so broken. And again, it's an amazing story that God redeemed, but it all started because her parents got divorced, an abusive stepfather came in, and then that was it. The rest was history. So I say those stories and I tell those stories, and of course, JC is another glowing example of someone that God has redeemed. But it shows how important it is to fight for your marriage, because marriage is not always going to be hard, but it's worth it.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, marriage is like a garden. You have to
water it. It's greener where you water it.
Yeah.
So, all right. One of the things that we discuss often is like 40 years from now. If you knew my age. All right. So, when you're 75 or 80 years old, right, and you're sitting in your rocking chair next to your spouse, what do those conversations look like? Where are you? What does it look like? What are you feeling? And what's your conversation with your spouse? So I'm going to start with Clarice and Elton.
You go ahead.
Because Elton knows I actually think about stuff like this, and I journal about it.
I don't.
I always just imagine that we will just have a really big family, like family legacy. Like, what are we sitting in our rocking chairs teaching something to our grandkids, or I don't know, great? Well, that's not really great grandkids by then, like grandkids. What are we teaching them something? Are we sharing stories about our life when we were their age? Are we sharing lessons with them? Because I agree, like generationally, family in the Black community is just sort of a distorted image. Yeah. Our biggest goal in our marriage was we want to restore dignity to this idea of the Black family.
Right.
So we think about like a bunch of kids sitting on the floor. I think about that, and us just sharing with them, this is God's purpose and plan. This is what He wants for you. He loves you. This is what God has for you. This is how you go after it.
Right.
But I imagine like him telling those stories and he's just rocking.
Right. Listen to my baby. How about you, Elton? What's your vision?
I don't have one right now. I plan on being alive.
I feel like that.
But
Oh,
yeah, no, nothing much to add.
Right.
Well, probably the first question I would leave my teeth, and then the second question we'll be hopefully talking about our grandkids. And as parents, we have a 7 and 8 year old. I mean, they're really our heart, and
they're so adorable.
And I tell young people that haven't had kids yet, like, you'll never know what love truly is until you have a kid. Only then will you appreciate how much your parents loved you, because it's a love that no matter who you think you love now, whether it's your parents, whether it's your spouse, whoever, you don't know what love is until you have a child. So of course, we have a certain amount of time to raise them, to hopefully instill the gospel in them, and hopefully we're seeing the beauty of that 40 years from now.
I would just love to have grandbabies and maybe more kids and watch them get married and just be a godly example for what they want to then see their families turn out to be like.
I'm going to ask a question because, all right, so, and I hope we can cut this out if Clarice is not. All right, so, Clarice, you have a daughter, but I have to kind of preface this by saying I met Clarice when she was in her early 20s, and Clarice adopted a teenager.
Wow.
And first of all, I was so blown away by the fact that you did that, right? And recently, being married now and like Elton stepping into that situation and everything that happened, kind of talk about how that works and what that looked like. And Elton, share like how you were able to, look at this. She's now a woman
Basically,
who's,
integrated.
Yeah, and how did you guys integrate that?
Honestly, I did not. I'll first start by saying Tanya and JC were such a huge help to me in that season of my life because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, y'all. I got nothing. Like, this is what God has.
They know us as Tanya and JC.
It was just, it was, I knew that that's what God was calling me to in that season. I didn't know how I was going to do that. I was like, God, it's really just you and me because I don't know what I'm doing here. And just having you both as mentors there was great. But that was an experience. Honestly, like Jasmine is a part of our family. She'll text us. She'll text me at midnight. I need help. We're up. We are racing over there. She overflowed the bathtub. Nothing happened. But just that relationship with her now. She's like the kid's sister I never had. We're only 10 years apart, so I can't really say like she's the daughter I never. But I think Elton knows like she has that place in my heart as my daughter. Like Elton knows that I treat her that way. I'm always like, do you have grocery at home? Are you okay? Like, do you have what you need? And it's been interesting because I wasn't sure when I was dating like how a man would be able to come into that space and how they would feel,
right,
or what that would look like. I didn't know how she would receive someone else, so she doesn't like to share. She's actually tried to sabotage all of my relationships. But Elsa, you were the first person that she liked.
Wow, let's pass that test.
Right, like she met him and she's like, I like him.
Well, the second person.
But you weren't trying to like
I
take
know,
me
I
away
know.
from her. That's how she sees it. So I remember like on our wedding day, like she was really excited that you were going to be joining our family. That's how she put it.
Great story.
And it's been great. I think Elsa's been a really good example for her too.
She grew up. She definitely grew on me. Sometimes she tells me the backstories. I'm like, she did what? I did what? But she definitely grew on me, and she's matured so quickly. And it's really amazing to see what she's done. It's filtered when it comes from me, but she's not ready to be too sentimental with me. So, but she's done a lot for her time.
So young.
Yeah.
So before she came to live with me, she had spent 10 years in the foster care system.
Wow.
And honestly, I would not have even met her if I wasn't working for GAL, if I wasn't connected with you all. So I became her mentor in a program. She was living in a group home, and we had kept hearing rumors that the group home was going to close, that they were going to relocate all of the girls. And I started praying about it. I'm like, well, I hope you can find a really nice home for her that's close so I can still be connected to her. And he's like, plot twist. You're going to be, I was like, I'm going to be, so it was just an interesting time for us both. I was 1 year out from losing my mom, and Jasmine had never had this, her mom had never been a figure in her life. So I think God was helping us both to fill a need that we both had. That's how I see it. That's how I feel. It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
And
Especially that you were willing to do that.
When God says something, I'm not going, all right, we're doing it.
step forward and things. And it was beautiful to watch. And of course, there was ups and downs and hard times, but it was really beautiful to watch. And you guys also have a beautiful family story. So could you just share some of that?
Yeah, one of the reasons we felt like God was calling us to get married is before we were married and both single, we both really had a passion and heart for adoption. And so one of the first questions I asked was, do you want to adopt? And he's like, of course. I'm like, all right, this might work. So we have a perfect little angel. I'm a little biased, but
Can I tell a story real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the pastor at our church had adopted several kids, and he knew a lawyer also went to the church that occasionally comes by babies that need a home on very short notice. So we went through the home study, we got on the Rolodex of this particular lawyer, and he said, hey, anytime within the next 2 years, you could get a phone call. 8 months later, in December, I think it was December 18th, all of a sudden I'm working and I see a number come from the law office. I'm like, oh my. Pick it up. His assistant says, we have a baby boy at the hospital. He was just born. Can you take him?
Oh.
That was the conversation. I remember it because there wasn't much said.
Right.
And so it was an amazing feeling. So a week before Christmas, we come to the hospital, and the baby was just born. The mother walked in and said, I can't have the baby, and the lawyer had a connection to the nurses in the room, and that's how it happened. So it took 48 hours till the mom could officially sign the child over, but we had basically a miracle baby right around Christmas. He's 7 now. We have a biological son, 8 months, 16 months old.
Best Christmas. And he loves me more than my biological kid. I joke, but he is so much more attached to me than my biological son. He's just the most incredible little play.
And one quick thing I'll tag, we have dear friends, an awesome couple, and they just found out the other day that they can't have children. And they were really sad about it, and but they're also excited about the adoption angle. And the one thing we told them is, when you adopt a child, you'll never, years down the road, say, oh, I wish I would have had a biological. Because an adopted child is your child. And it's just sewn into your heart, as Chelsea said. And you'll be thankful in the long run that you couldn't have that other child, because this child that the Lord gave you was so special. So that's what I would say to any families that are going through or considering the adoption process or the fostering process, which is incredibly courageous and a wonderful thing to do, is that it's worth it, and you'll never regret it.
It's a truly supernatural experience, and I think that's why it makes it so much different than biological. You have to love your biological kid, right? It's your kid. But when God gives you a kid, it's a supernatural, just extraordinary experience.
All right, guys, so that brings our married couples panel to a close. This was part 2. We've had such a great time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Look,
you
they're
for having
smooching
us.
over there. Thank you so much for joining us and just sharing your hearts and opening up like the doors, the behind the scenes to your marriages. And I hope you guys were blessed by it as well.
Yes.
And please share in the comments your thoughts or even questions you have, because we will send them questions if you have questions after this. And thank you again. Like,
Yes.
JC, go ahead, OG.
Oh my gosh. Well, I definitely want to thank everyone that's here for having just a blessed conversation.
I know, right?
And I'm sure you guys in the interwebs probably get some value out of this. And also, talking about value, please join us as we do the monthly
Oh, marriage affirmations.
affirmations.
Right. If you're married and you just want to, you can start any day and any
Yes.
month, any day, any hour. Just, make a determination, be intentional about just pouring into your spouse and like just watching your marriage bloom. And remember, marriage it's hills and valleys, right? You're
Exactly.
going to have the high highs and there may be some low lows, but together and with God, you guys can work it out.
Exactly.
Thank you again.
Thank you. And also just a shameless plug. Go back in and the vetting yourself. What is that?
What, vetting yourself to determine if you're ready to date, what courtship looks like. You can check out some of our prior episodes. But guys, 2 weeks from now, we'll have a whole new show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And as always, be blessed.
And be a blessing.